professional winner.
Welcome to the Professional Winner Podcast. I am your host, Jonathan Conyers, a.k.a. the Professional Winner, a.k.a. Mr. TPW. And I have somebody super amazing with me today. Dico, how are you doing today?
I'm feeling good, Jonathan.
We're going to get Dico talking, don't worry. If you know me, if you really, really know me, you know how special Dico is to me. This has been a long time coming. I have probably been looking forward to this interview more than anyone I've done so far or anyone I could imagine doing in the future. Dico has been very special in my life, instrumental to my development as a youth. And I don't think I'll be sitting right here. I don't think I would have the career and the family I do have if it wasn't for you. So before we get to how I met Dico and how our lives intertwine, I want to talk more about your upbringing, letting the fans know who you are, and I'm ready to get to it. So are you ready, Dico?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go. So, Dico, break down the family dynamic for me. What's the upbringing?
Yeah, so I'm a born and bred New York City kid. Love New York. Never gonna go anywhere. This is my home. I grew up on the same street that my grandparents moved to when they moved to this country in 1957. Woodbine Street, Ridgewood, Queens. My mom's parents moved here from Ireland. My dad's from Italy. Irish, Italian, Catholic, New Yorker kid, basically out of the cast of Newsies. Grew up, I was born in 1985, and I was the oldest of four. So I had a great childhood. Grew up in Ridgewood, really close with my family. My grandma lived down the street. My uncle lived down the street. My family's really, really tight. And loved it, just really had a happy childhood. And I'll tell you a little bit about my parents. So my mom was just her whole life was her family, and just loved her family more than anybody I ever knew. And she was a great mom and just made us a really happy family and really tight. And my dad, hardworking guy, family guy. I remember he's working doubles. He was in construction when I was a kid. I would be so happy to see him because he'd just be working all the time trying to put food on the table. And 90s, the economy was tough, and he struggled and it was hard, but he always made sure that we had what we needed. We had more than we needed. He just always, both of them, mom and dad, just gave us a really happy childhood. So can't complain. Really love New York City, love my family, and that was the early days. And it got a little more interesting when I got a little older. My mom found out about this school called Stuyvesant. And she wasn't born in this country. She was born in Ireland, and my grandparents are all immigrants here, and my parents, they didn't go to 4-year colleges. My mom started work right out of high school. So did my dad. Eventually he went back for an associate's, but we didn't know what Stuyvesant was. And my mom found out about it when I was in 7th grade and was like, that's where you're going to go. And it so happened, after the fact, she figured out what this school was. She realized my dad had worked on the construction team that built the new building for Stuyvesant in the early 90s, and that he and my uncle put in all the windows in that building. And ultimately that's where not only I, but also my little brother would end up going. So it was kind of coming full circle kind of thing. When I got to Stuy, it changed my whole life,
Elaborate on it. How?
Yeah. So first of all, Stuyvesant is a really special place because all the kids are nerds, and I was like, oh, hello, I'm home now. And everybody, all the kids were just so smart that I felt dumb. And it's good when you're in a place where you feel dumb, because then you push yourself to really be the best that you can be. And that's what Stuy was for me, right? I have never, ever worked as hard in my life as I did in high school. And it brought out, I think, the best in me, and it showed me what I could do. And the real community where that came to life for me was on the speech and debate team at Stuyvesant. So my coach, Julie Scheiman, led this team that had 300 kids on it. It's a huge program. It's one of the biggest programs in the country, never mind the city. And we went everywhere, that's how I did my college tours. I did it on speech and debate. Like, we would compete at Yale, we'd compete at Harvard, we compete at UPenn, we compete at Emory. Like, that's how I saw college campuses. And that's also how I figured out for myself, like, oh, like, I'm going to go to college. Because I saw my older friends on the speech and debate team get into places like Harvard and Yale and UPenn and UChicago. And I was like, I guess I can apply to places like Harvard and Yale and UChicago. I wasn't, I didn't grow up really knowing people that went to schools like that, but it just became normal because that's what all of my friends on the team did. And so speech and debate was really special for me. And then it became life-changing halfway through high school. On my 5th day of junior year, I watched the Twin Towers fall from a couple blocks away because Stuyvesant's located in downtown New York. And, we watched the whole thing happen. I mean, we saw, I had friends that saw the plane hit, both planes hit. I remember looking out the window and seeing the building on fire. I remember when the first tower fell, like our building started shaking and the lights went out and we ran for our lives. Like I remember thinking I was going to die like multiple times that day. We had to evacuate. My dad came up and he worked downtown and we evacuated together. And it was the scariest thing I'd ever been through. I was 16 years old and like the world just fell down a couple blocks away from me. And what started out as a normal day, just like, it was an international day that everyone remembers where they were on that day, Yeah. I was right there. And after the fact, I needed to talk about it, right? Like when something traumatic happens and you keep it just inside, it's not healthy, that's not good. And speech and debate became the only place, frankly, like where I really had a space to talk about it. So that year, junior year, senior year of high school, it didn't matter what the topic was that day. I was talking about terrorism. I was talking about September 11th. I was talking about like, how do we move forward from this? Like I just made my space to talk about it. And it was incredibly healing for me. I don't think I would have gotten through those 2 years, to be honest, if it weren't for speech and debate. So that was huge,
Now, eventually, you go on after Stuyvesant, and you go into the great university known as?
Yeah, so I, like I said, my friends were applying to all these fancy places, and I was like, I don't know, I'll just apply to some fancy places. And I never thought I was going to get in, and in fact, my guidance counselor, I'll never forget this, said to me that, oh yeah, sure, you can apply to Yale. Sometimes they feel sorry for kids that pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And I was like, excuse me? You better believe I'm going to apply to Yale. So, I applied to Yale along with, I kid you not, 70 other kids from Stuyvesant that year who applied early to Yale. I remember being at the college office looking at 6 pages of all of us that applied early. And I was like, this is not going to happen. There's no way that I'm going to get this. Not going to happen. And it happened. On Friday, December 13th. So, it's like my lucky day now, Friday the 13th. I found out that I got into Yale. And I remember when I checked on the computer, I saw this message that was like, welcome to the class of 2007. And I was just like staring at the screen. I was like, where's the part that says we're sorry to inform you that you, I was like, I didn't get it. And my brother had to come and like shake me. And I was like, started screaming and be like, oh my God, you got into Yale. So I got into Yale and I ended up going there. I mean, obviously, it was my dream school and it was awesome. Like Yale it was like going to Hogwarts. I mean, like it was magical, like I'm like living in a castle. And, it was funny because one of my roommates ended up becoming like one of my best friends. I tell this story about how her grandfather was a big shot at Yale, was like a professor at Yale, like ran one of the residential colleges. There's like memorials for him, like with his name on it. I was like, this is what's magical about America, right? That she and I become best friends because, I'm a kid. My grandparents were like literally digging potatoes, right? Like when her grandfather was running a residential college at Yale, but now we're both here and we're best friends and we're roommates. And like, it's just like I'm really grateful that I had the chance to go there and to have that experience. And it changed my life. I met amazing people. I played rugby for all 4 years. Well, I got injured. I couldn't play for all 4 years, but I was on the rugby team for 4 years. I know that you can't see me. This is a podcast, but I'm pretty small. I don't look like a rugby player. But, you know, that's where all the queer women were. And I was like, oh, hello, I should probably follow you because I also came out in college. And I was like, okay, I mean, I guess this is what I'm going to do now. And I found a really affirming family of amazing folks that just loved me for exactly who I was and who took care of me, because you got to remember, this is also, you know, I go to Yale in 2003. It's 2 years after September 11th, and I'm still carrying all this trauma, you know, like, and speech and debate gave me a place to talk about it, but like, I was still carrying it. Like, and I was a kid. I was 18 years old and saw this terrible thing happen. And I found people at Yale that really gave me the help I needed, that let me talk about it, and that sat with me when I cried, and that hugged me when I needed it, and just helped me heal. You know, I mean, I remember my friend who dragged me to therapy. I didn't want to go. I was like, no, I don't need it. And it dragged me. And like, thank God she did, you know, like that's what friendship is, like really helping people even when they don't know they need it. And so, you know, I majored in philosophy, but I tell people really, I majored in coming out and getting over PTSD at Yale. And that was important.
So why did you major in philosophy?
Yeah, so...
At Yale, that's very interesting. That's different from your path now, but I want to start there.
Yeah. So, you know, everything was fun. I was taking classes in political science and history. Okay, let's be fair. I was not a STEM kid, okay? Stuyvesant, I did all my math and science. I was like, okay, I want to do some humanities stuff. And that was all fun for me. I'm studying religious studies stuff and political science stuff and history stuff. But, like, I kind of figured that all of that stuff, while I loved it, it just wasn't kicking my butt enough. And I was like, I can read this. Like, I get it. I understand it. Like, I want something that's really going to kick my butt. I'm only going to get to do Yale once. Like, I want to leave here smarter than I came here. And I remember picking up my first philosophy book, and I was like, okay, I don't know what this is trying to say. Like, I don't understand any of this. So I'm going to study it more, you know, because I want to leave here smarter than I came here. So I majored in philosophy, and I took a lot of classes on, like, you know, continental European philosophy and Kant and Locke and ethics and all that stuff. And I ended up writing a senior thesis on the philosophy of commemoration, where I got to really interweave my interests of philosophy and commemorating stuff like September 11th, and got to really think deeply about, like, the ethics of, like, what do we do when something terrible has happened? Like, how do we respond to it? How do we mark it? Like, how do we commemorate it? Just how do we remember it? And it was fun. I really, I definitely learned how to think and how to read and how to write papers and how to make arguments, which came in a little handy later, which I'm sure we'll get to.
Yeah. We have a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
We have
so
a lot to unpack.
That really started for me when I was studying philosophy at Yale.
Okay, and I know something else, and I'm cheating, just like most of my guests that have been here thus far. I really know them personally, so I kind of pretend like I don't know who this amazing person is, but I do. Talk to me about getting in the finalists of Goldman Sachs senior year.
Oh no! I mean, look, I mean, I didn't know what I was gonna do. I really felt the, like, first generation college thing a lot, because, like, I was like, I made it here. Now what? Like, I don't know. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I wanted to do as a career. I had no idea, you know? But all my friends, I mean, it was Yale. All my friends, everybody's applying to, like, you know, Goldman Sachs and, like, you know, the all these fancy consulting firms and investment banks. And I was like, I don't know. I guess I'll apply to these too. I don't know. So I applied. I got to finals, like a final interview. And I was like, I don't know why you picked me for a final interview, having never studied economics in my life. Like, what am I doing here? Thank God they didn't take me. By the way, I think I would have been miserable. That is not the path that I was destined for. That would have been bad. Another fun thing that happened was the CIA tried to recruit me senior year.
Whoa.
Yeah. So when I got to Yale, the only thing I knew I wanted to study was Arabic, right? Because remember, it's 2003. You know, I watched the Twin Towers fall down. I was like, I want to be able to understand where this came from, right? Like, just, I don't know anything about the Middle East except that this just showed up on my doorstep and, like, you know, September 11th unfolded right in front of me. So I want to understand it better. And the way you understand stuff is you go to the primary sources. And I was like, well, I guess I gotta know some Arabic. So I studied it, and I was thinking at the time maybe I would go into the State Department or the CIA or something. And then 4 years later of studying Arabic and like actually understanding like the Middle East, the United States role in the Middle East, I was like, no. I do not want to go into the CIA. I do not want to go help the U.S. government do this. It's more complicated than people say it is.
Yes.
So the CIA came, and I said, thank you, but no thank you. Instead, I said yes to a little organization called Teach for America.
TFA.
TFA. Yeah.
Making changes all over the world.
Yeah. So I had never heard of TFA before, but I remember senior year just seeing a little recruiter, with a little stand on campus that was like, our generation must take up this issue. I was like, hello, what issue are you talking about? Tell me, I don't know what you were talking about. So I went and I talked to them, and they were like, have you ever heard of the achievement gap? And I was like, I don't know. What do you know? And then I learned a little bit about like how in this country, your skin color and the zip code where you were born and the amount of money that your parents have in the bank account has a lot of influence on the path that you get to take. And it's not fair, right? And I was like, whoa, let me do the math here and think about this. Like, the most important thing that's ever happened to me was getting into Stuyvesant, like a public school, by the way, although it's complicated because there's a test and all that stuff. But like a public school is like what made me who I am. And everything I've done that I've enjoyed since then has involved teaching kids. Like I looked at every summer, that job I ever had, and every tutoring job I ever had, and I was like, it's always been about teaching kids. Maybe I should become a teacher. Maybe I'll try this, and I applied, and I got accepted, and I ended up being placed at a school in Harlem called Frederick Douglass Academy. And I started teaching there in the fall of 2007, right after graduating from Yale.
Okay. And that's where we met.
That is where we met, Jonathan.
So I don't want to tell the story. This is your podcast today. So talk to me about your first years at FDA. Not just meeting me, but some amazing people. Keswa, Roland, Weeks, Amani. The list can go on and go on. Talk to me about being a teacher, and your first couple of years at FDA and dealing in the heart of Harlem.
So let me tell you, if you're listening to this and you were one of my first students, I'm so sorry. I was such a bad teacher when I started. The first year of teaching is so hard. Teaching is really hard. So I'm sorry. You deserve better. I hope that your lives worked out well. Okay. So having made that disclaimer.
Most of them have.
Look, teaching it was the hardest thing I've ever done. I was like spending lunch periods crying. I was like, I'm so bad at this. This is so hard. But it was really important, right? And I knew I was there for a reason. And, like Viktor Frankl once said, he who has a why can endure almost any how. And I was like, I got my why, right? It matters that all kids have access to an amazing education. And I got it at Stuyvesant, and the kids at FDA deserve exactly what I had at Stuyvesant. How do I make that happen, And at the time, I started off by teaching a self-contained special education class, Latin. And yes, you heard that correctly. I'm pretty sure I was the only special education Latin teacher in the country, but that's how the DOE works. You do what you're told. And then eventually I started teaching some mainstream classes, and I was teaching Latin. I was teaching English. I was teaching algebra for a hot second. But the real heart of my teaching career was in teaching debate. So when I got to FDA, Dr. Hodge, may he rest in peace, the principal at FDA, said to me, every teacher here has to run a club. Okay, has to run a team. You got to do something after school. And I said, okay, no problem. He goes, so you played rugby in college, right? And I said, yeah. He goes, you're going to start our lacrosse team. I was like, Dr. Hodge, I don't even know what lacrosse is. He's like, you hit each other, you play. And I was like, no. How about I start your debate team? He said, okay, fine. So we compromised, and we started a debate team. And my first year there, it was, just a couple of kids, and I was getting my bearings as a first-year teacher. It was very small. Okay. But then my second year there, I met Keswa, and that changed everything, because as a teacher and as a debate coach, there comes a couple times in your career where you meet a kid and you're like, oh, I can do this now. I got my captain, right? I met Keswa, I found my captain, and then we were off to the races, because then the next 3 years at FDA we go from being like this little ragtag group. Remember, we didn't even have a classroom. We were meeting in the culinary arts room. They had us in. We had nothing. Like, but we went from being this little ragtag group of this little team from that nobody ever heard of to being a team that was competing on the state and national circuit. We had kids qualifying for states. We had kids competing at Harvard, competing at Yale, and doing well, mind you, winning rounds, right? And there were no public schools like us on the circuit. It's the speech and debate world, like so much in education, unfortunately, it's reserved for people with money, for schools that are, that are private schools, for schools that are public schools in quotes, but like it's Scarsdale, right? No offense, Scarsdale, you got a great program, but like it's not the same as FDA, right? And I couldn't believe these kids that I was meeting, and they were brilliant. They were just you, Jonathan. You were one of them, but all of your friends, everybody on that team, these are kids that taken like 4 or 5 APs. They're pushing themselves to the limit. And then after school, they're coming and spending hours at debate practice. And then every single Friday night, they're going down to Regis High School where they're debating against kids from Stuyvesant and Regis and Hunter College, 3 of the top schools in New York City. And then every Saturday and every weekend, they're going around, we're traveling and we're competing, and every month we're at a different national tournament. Like, it was just such momentum and energy. And I was in awe of all of you. I loved it.
And for people who don't, when you say schools like Regis, Stuyvesant, and if you're from New York, it's really hard for you not to know that name. But I'm not going to even give you a big alumni list. Let me just give you one alumni from Regis High School, Dr. Fauci. Right?
Yeah, that's who we're talking about.
Let's just make it simple, right?
Right.
If you, I think everybody knows what COVID is, right, at this point. So the guy in charge of leading the COVID pandemic is an alumni of Regis High School, #1 Catholic school in America.
Right.
So... yeah. And you got kids from 145th Street in Harlem. And I don't want to say not too many resources, because Dr. Hodge made us feel like we was at the #1 boarding school in the country.
Oh, 100%.
He did whatever it takes to make sure that brown kids in that particular area was getting the best education, and we had APs. We had things that public schools just did not have. So we lucked out extremely well at FDA, even though the zip code, and when we walked out of the building, there was violence, there was guns, there was drugs. Within that building, we felt like the sky was the limit.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so let's keep on to it. I guess this is my podcast, so I don't want to tell it from my perspective, because I usually do that all the time. I want to tell it from your perspective. When did we meet?
Oh, Jonathan. Okay. Okay, let me tell you what happened, okay? This is what happened. So this, I think, is like my 3rd year in the building now, maybe my 2nd, okay? I'm still...
Second,
my
2009.
Second. All right, great.
That's when I entered. Yeah.
Excellent, okay. So I'm still a new teacher. The team is kind of new, okay. And, but we're big now, because I got Keswa, I got my captain, and I got Jaslyn, I got Martin, I got Marvin. I got like these key kids. I got Weeks, got everybody. And then this kid shows up, and he's like, I'm a freshman. Can I spend my lunch period sitting in on your senior debate class? I'm like, who are you, kid? Nobody audits classes in high school. What are you talking about? And I was like, sure, you can come. That's fine. I mean, I didn't say that to him, but I'm thinking, like, who is this kid? He's going to give up his lunch period to come sit in a senior class, and it's a debate class. I was like, all right, fine. He doesn't just come. He comes and he like dominates, okay? I got the kids reading Kant. I got the kids reading Rawls. I got the kids reading like philosophy, like ethics, morals. We're doing debate cases. We're going all over the country. And Jonathan's like not just like sitting quietly observing. Jonathan is like dominating the class, okay? Every conversation we have. And I don't think I really got what was going on, Jonathan, and who you really were until the very end of that year. I will never forget this. It was the last day of class, and I like ending classes, giving the kids a chance to reflect on like how the year go, what's the team mean to you and all that stuff. And so every kid gets up and says, here's what the team has meant to me, here's what this year is meant to be, blah, blah, blah. So it's Jonathan's turn to say what speech and debate means to him, and he gets up and he goes, I joined debate to keep myself off the streets. And all of us look at him, we're like, what? Like, this is the kid that's come to every single practice, every single tournament. This is the nicest kid on the team. He holds the door for you. I mean, you name it, you think of the nicest kid, you think of Jonathan. And he starts telling us a story about, like, what his childhood was like and how he was in juvie and there was all this stuff and middle school was so hard and there was a drive-by shooting and your uncle was shot and like.
No, we was in Webster Projects. It was 8th grade. So I got in some trouble. It was a little short stint. I didn't really tell nobody about it. I think I was with my parents was in a shelter at the time. I was with my grandmother. So I was with some of my friends who, actually the 2 friends I was with, one is passed away. And one, I was just with him a couple of months ago. He just got out from doing 7 years, and I just lost contact with him again. One of my closest friends, Corey. So I don't know how he's doing. If you're listening to this, Corey, I'm still here. You have my number. Reach out. I know it's not easy coming out and being a felon, especially in a COVID world where there's no checks and balances, nothing. There's no opportunities for you. There's opportunities for your average American citizen. So imagine somebody with a felon. So we're walking through Webster Projects, and these 2 dudes start arguing. And I remember just, all you hear is, boop, boop. It happened so fast. I don't even can see it. And I remember Corey grabbing me by the neck and pushing me under the car. And our other friend got hit. Didn't pass away, but he got hit, and it was a whole big time. I think around that time, my Uncle David just got in trouble, and he got a 17-year bid. You guys all know who Gabe is. Me and Gabe just came back from Virginia a month ago. David just got out, so he's doing great, but he did 17 years. So there was a lot happening, and when I got in trouble, initially I was supposed to go to Mount Hall Bronx High School, and I was 1 point from getting to Stuyvesant. But at that point, I was so back and forth between Virginia and New York because we were homeless. I didn't really understand the dynamic. Like in Virginia, you go to the school that's in your district. When I came to New York, they were like, you have to apply to high school. And I'm like, why am I applying to high school? This is not college. So I was very confused about the process. They made me sit for all these exams because they felt like I was special. But when you come from certain areas and all the people who was drawn to me were doing bad things, that's how I fit. That's how I fit in. I didn't want to be the lame. I didn't want to be, pushed to the side. You didn't want to be labeled as the geek. So when I kind of got into FDA, which I really don't even know how it happened. I didn't apply for no school. I guess my counselor must have did in middle school. And Dr. Hodge kind of said, if I allow you into the school, because there was an exam. Remember, we used to have to take an exam to get an FDA. They tried to do a lot of things that Stuyvesant schools was doing. But in reality, if you failed or passed the exam, you was going to get in because it was a public school. It was all based on bodies and numbers. But Dr. Hodge ran it like a well-oiled machine that he tried to do certain things to pick the students. And he was like, you can't get in trouble again. You're very lucky. And you have to do something after school. No, you're not leaving and running out my building and going back to Webster Projects. You have to do something. Forget about all of them. Do something. So when I first got there, I'll be honest, I love Harlem now. Back then, there was a lot of issues with me going to school in Harlem. And that was due to gang, YG. There was a lot of things that I was affiliated with that I was very nervous about going to school in Harlem because I've had some bad situations there. And I'm not trying to say like I was this big. No, it was petty. It was stupid. But as you know, when you follow the wrong crowd, stupid things can turn to bad things. So I was very nervous about going to school in Harlem. So there were people sometimes in the cafeteria that I would see. I was just like, they wearing this color. I'm still down. I'm this. I'm not going to go to lunch. So I'm walking around, and anybody who know me always said, John, you had the gift for gab. All you do is talk. And I was like, Josh is doing well in college. Jay done graduated. So my baseline was like, yo, I don't want to do this, but I'm not about to go get beat up by my big brothers because all of them went to college and we got the same story. So I looked at Amani. I looked at some of these people because originally I wanted to play football. We were supposed to play for the Harlem Hellfighters. But it's New York City. One day we have a field, one day we don't. It was no consistency. So Dr. Hodge was like, no, you have to find something else. So Amani's like, yo, we all debate. You talk a lot, man. And I walked past. And I was like, whoa, this were all the kids that's going to Yale, MIT, Angel. Yeah. It's like, everybody was going to top schools. So I was like, I went to you. And at this time, you're Miss D.
Yeah.
Right? You're Miss D. You're going by Christine at this point.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, cool. I'll just sit here. And it changed me. You taught me that being cool was good, that going to college was fun. It didn't feel like I was being attacked by being special and showing my blessings. And yeah, we could continue to elaborate on that. So Dico, as we were unpacking these things, a lot of these things was just happening in my life. I was trying to figure things out. And like I said before, you made school cool. My first time ever going on a college campus. Well, my first time going to college campus was Josh's graduation. But my first time really going to college campus as somebody who's visiting, somebody who's paying attention to things were you. And you probably didn't realize that, you know, every Friday we're going to Regis. We're going to Stuyvesant. We're kicking these kids' butt. You know, society told us I shouldn't be in these spaces. And you made us know that we belong. You showed us that we belonged there. You showed us that we were special. And you showed us if you do this, this could lead to this. You can go to this college. You can have this type of lifestyle. And your family will be okay. When you grow up in Webster, you grow up in the Bronx, all the people that were cool, all the people that were successful did illegal things. And then when I entered your world, it was like all the people that were successful, all your friends went the right route and they were doing better than ever, right? They were lawyers, they were doctors. We met every time we go to Yale, we go to Harvard, you have friends, all these alumni, and you just constantly felt special. And it changed my mindset, it changed my brain, and it wanted me to do more. But I want to talk about something. And I want to be honest. It was a lot. You taught me much more than just college and wanting to be special. You taught me really how to love. And why do I say that? I remember the day where you came in and you said, "Hey, I want to be called Mr. D. I understand that you know me as Miss D. If you feel uncomfortable, you can call me Dico." And you cut your hair.
I sure did.
You came in with a suit.
Sure did.
And the first thing my ignorant ass brain said as a 14-year-old kid who grew up in the hood all the time, like, why? Why are you doing that? This makes no sense to us, you know? But nothing about you changed. You loved me the same. You took me on them same trips. And when people will say negative things about you, and I know you know, I know there was a lot of things going around. And there were adults.
Oh, there sure were.
And we don't have to elaborate on that. We're not going to even give them power. But I heard teachers saying things. I heard students saying things. And for a while, I was like, you know what? Maybe they're right. Why? But then, as I spent every day with you, I would say, Dico didn't change. Dico just said, that's who Dico felt that he is. But Dico still loves me. This teacher is saying this, but this teacher will give me a time of the day. This teacher is not invested into my education. This teacher is not taking me from this shelter and putting me in Yale for the weekend. This teacher didn't take me to Harvard and say, you are special. You can compete with every single one of them. Whether you wore a suit, whether you had long hair, whether you have short hair. So when I say you taught me love, you taught me that no matter what a person believes in or who they think they are, that you look at the person as an individual. So I want to thank you for that. And I want you to elaborate. I want you to separate me, and I want you to elaborate on the transition. Because at 14, we was selfish. We didn't care about how hard it was for you. We didn't know why you did that. We didn't understand why you did that. We just learned to love you for you. But I want to go back to being 14 again. And I want to understand what Dico brain was at.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, when I was at Yale, I figured out that I liked girls. And that was hard because I grew up Catholic, right? And I was scared to tell my family. In fact, I didn't tell my family until the night before I graduated from Yale is when I called my parents and I came out to them, because I said to myself, they're never going to be more proud of me than they are right now. So I got to milk this moment, and this is the moment where I'm going to tell them. And it was hard at first, you know? I mean, it was hard. And, ultimately it worked out, and like they were, they're very accepting and everything's okay now. But, I was really scared to come out, and and for good reason, right? And then when I got to teaching, this really funny thing happened. It was the summer before my first year, and I was at TFA's Institute, which is where they train new teachers how to teach, okay? It's like a 6-week boot camp, okay? And we had this exercise where everybody's writing about what are you most nervous about for teaching? And everybody's writing things like, I don't know how to lesson plan, I don't know how to manage a classroom, whatever. And it occurs to me that the thing that I am most nervous about is what kind of shoes am I going to wear? Because all the other girls are buying high heels. I don't wear high heels. I don't know what am I going to wear, period? Like how do I dress professionally and bring my full self to this room? And at that point, I wasn't even playing with pronouns and gender. I still had long hair and all that stuff, but I really got this sense that there was something happening under the surface that I wasn't really letting myself explore yet, And that first year of teaching, I wore like androgynous clothing. And you know what? I was a bad teacher. Like I said, first year, real hard. Sorry if you were my student first year, real hard. But I remember the kids that would tease me, because, kids tease teachers or whatever, they would pick up on it. And they would tease me about like, wearing short skirts or like wearing high heels. And like, kids got like antennae, right? Like they clue in a way that like nobody else can to like, what is the thing that's awkward in the room, right? Like what's the teacher, is the teacher, like what's going on for the teacher? And they figured it out before I did, that like there was something going on with gender. There was something going on with the way that I was presenting myself and like my gender expression. And so the second year of teaching, I was like, no, I'm not going to have this. No one's going to make fun of me for what I'm wearing. So you know what? I'm going to show up and be exactly who they're looking for. And I bought dresses and I bought makeup and I bought high heels. And I don't know if you remember this, my second year of teaching, okay, I started that year every day with my hair up in a bun, wearing makeup, wearing heels, wearing a dress, wearing a skirt, okay? And I remember everybody at the school sort of complimenting me and colleagues, oh my God, you look so good. I love your new style. And I felt like my skin was crawling all the time. And I was like, this isn't going to work, and they were trying to be nice to me, but it didn't make me feel good because I didn't feel like me. I felt like, there's this kid's movie with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and he's got this red nose, and his parents, they put like coal on it to make it black just to fit in, and he feels uncomfortable. And that's how I felt, right? I felt like I was putting something on me just to try to blend in, but it wasn't real. It wasn't who I was. And so that year, I went from the first day of school wearing that dress with my hair in a bun with the makeup and the heels to little by little ending that year with short hair in a suit, wearing only clothes that I bought from the Macy's boys department. Because again, I'm really small. I know you can't see me. I'm 5'3". I am tiny.
They can see you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I don't fit into like adult men's clothing, but like I fit okay into like boys' clothes. And I was like, hello, here we go. And like that year, it was little by little. Like, I think the heels were probably the first to go, and I bought boys' shoes, and like then I started buying suits, and I wore a tie. I remember the first time I saw myself in a tie that year, and I couldn't stop looking in the mirror. I was like, oh my God, I look good. I like the way I look. I had never liked the way I look, and I didn't really have the language to express it, because when I was growing up, nobody talked about gender. We weren't even talking about queer stuff, and liking girls. That wasn't a thing, but we were not talking about gender and gender expression, gender identity. There was no vocabulary for that, And I saw the way I looked wearing men's clothing. I was like, oh my God, this is who I am. And I'm not going back, right?
And this was 2009.
This was 2009.
Much different time.
Yeah.
And did you ever feel like your career was on the line?
Oh my God, yes. So let me tell you, at FDA, I'm not going to name names here, but let's just say I wasn't allowed to start a GSA because if I did, quote, you'd be out by June, was what I was told.
And can you just elaborate what GSA
Sure.
means?
So it's Gay Straight Alliance. I don't think kids even do that anymore because kids are like so much more progressive now. They have got all the... But back in my day, we called it a GSA, okay? And I wasn't allowed to start one. I had these queer kids that were coming to me that were like, I want to have a space where we could like talk about who we are and what's going on. It's like we needed it at the school, but I was told you start that, you'd be out by June. So I didn't start a GSA. I started a Wednesday club that would meet on Wednesdays, and they would be in my room, and then we would have our conversation, and then we would go. And it was funny because like I had like all this like false stuff up in case somebody walked in the room. I remember I told the kids like I would have like a false agenda on the board and like false pamphlets on the table. It was all just like a show because we were hiding the fact that we were actually having a GSA.
I remember writing a case because I would be there late.
Yeah.
I probably would leave high school every day at 6 just I didn't want to go home. And I was there writing a case, and I remember you guys talking about it. And
yeah.
You started to get used to it.
Kids, they needed a space.
Yeah.
They just needed a space. And like there was I know about some of my colleagues too. And, we were I was at a faculty meeting once where I swear to God, the person running the meeting was like, we need to talk about all this fighting that's happening We need to talk about all this cursing that's happening. And we need to talk about all this homosexuality that's happening. And I was like, what? What? And I was like, what decade am I in right now? Where are we?
2009, middle of Harlem.
You know, and look, I think it's a different time now, right? I don't, hopefully none of that stuff's going on right now. And those people, they were my friends and I respect them, you know, and I can compartmentalize, right? They're not bad people. None of them are bad people. This was new and they didn't know they never met anybody before. And, you know, I don't hold it against them and that's fine. Like, I really respect them as friends and colleagues and educators. And for my students, like, they're kids. You can't hold it against kids. Like, they're kids and they're learning, you know, and I'm just one of the things that they learned about. A lot of them hadn't met queer people before and certainly hadn't met trans people before.
Yeah. And just a disclaimer, this has nothing to do with FDA.
No.
As a high school, as a building.
Yeah.
And I don't care what organization you work for, what school you are. There are just some people who just need more time to deal with change. And this is more about individuals who we're not going to name. And like Dico said, we don't think are bad people. It's just they had a different perspective and they didn't understand what to expect. But it's weird to me because I feel like the students and the kids handle it much better than adults.
They sure did.
Because I remember like the first day, like you said, I always talked in class and I was just always aggressive. I was very quiet those first days because I just didn't know what to think. And you just grow up and I'm like, this can't be right. It's something in, like, what is happening? Like, you know, like I was taught my whole life, no, you don't do that. You know, and I know Dico's Catholic. I know, like, what is going on? And it took those months of education, but I feel like we were so more receptive to it. We were so more eager, like, I don't care. That's Dico. Like, Dico's the sharpest person in the world. So if Dico's doing this, it must matter. Like, it must mean something. But I guess that's the beauty of kids, right? We're usually more open-minded to understand 100%. And to learn. But there was just a lot of adults that were like, you shouldn't do debate. What are you doing there? What do they teach you in the Bronx? It's like, chill out, man. You ain't taking me to Harvard. You don't care about what I'm going. You're not trying to get me into the best schools. No. So it was tough. And not tough about your change, just tough about the environment. Yeah. And you know, you grow up in these, you know, as soon as you do something, everybody, no homo. Oh, no this.
Yeah. So much no homo.
It was to the point where I was like, nervous because we'll be in the hallway. You don't touch me, bro. No homo up. And then you walk past, I'm like, I'm sorry, Dico. I didn't. You know, like I didn't mean to offend you, but It's like that's all I've been taught. Like I can't, you know, there was like a year ago, like 2 years, I just started comfortable. Sometimes I would say the pronoun wrong and I'd be like, Dico, I'm still conditioned in that way, and society has taught me to put people in boxes, to even put you in a box. And I'm so thankful to have an ally like you and to be in your corner because education is so critical.
Yeah. But that's just it. It's education, right? Yeah. And like this, you can't, there's no way I could hold it against the kids because they're kids. The whole point is that they're learning and it's my job to teach them. And like, yes, I was teaching folks Latin and debate, but like, also I was teaching folks this just by being there, right? Like, and I think that's a really important lesson, you know?
And I think it's who you are, and I'm happy we touched on it, but there's much more important things about you.
Oh, there's so much.
So let's get back into that. Now let's talk about freshman year. Let's talk about, you know, besides the class and us learning all these amazing things and you sharpening our minds, let's talk about the actual team. Let's talk about Harvard Invitational.
Okay.
Let's talk about these things.
So before we get to Harvard, let's just talk. You talked about those Friday nights, right? Like you.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So
tough Friday nights. I remember my brother Josh coming and like from college to like, yo, what is mommy saying you're never in the house? You're like, are you sure you're not outside doing nothing? I'm like, I'm debating. He's like, all right, I'm gonna come. And he watched me go at Regis one day. And I think that was the first time I won a trophy. And actually I don't think it was JV. It was the first time you made me do
varsity.
And I don't know if it was because Josh was there and I was inspired. I just demolished those kids. It wasn't even funny. And Josh was just looking like, who are you? And I'm like, right there. And at that point, Josh is in college. He's like, who? Dico. And I'm like trying to explain, like, well, you know, I told you that Dico was. He's like, man, shut up. Gave Dico a hug. Like, what are you doing to my brother? And it was just like, okay, awesome, cool, yeah. That's my mom. Like, excuse me. At that point, that's my dad.
No.
That's
my
mom. That's my dad.
You're good.
That's who takes care of me. And it was just awesome. And I remember just getting so much confidence and just School became easier because of debate.
So, like, okay, here's from my perspective, right? I'm looking at this, and again, the whole paradigm that I have for what high school can be is Stuyvesant. It's the only paradigm I have. It's the only school I ever knew, right? So in my mind, I'm like,
that's a great paradigm.
it's not enough
Yeah.
unless it's like Stuyvesant. And everything that I did with speech and debate, that was my guideline, right? That was like my that's how I figured out what we were going to do. So it wasn't a question that we were going to go to the Manhattan Debate League tournaments that Mr. Eric D. McKelly hosts at Regis High School, because that's what Stuyvesant did every Friday. It wasn't a question that we were going to go to Yale, that we were going to go to Harvard, because those are the tournaments that Stuyvesant went to, and Miss Julie Scheinman takes the Stuyvesant kids to every year. Like, I'm looking at you all, not as FDA kids, but as debaters who deserve the exact same opportunities that I got when I was in high school. And then the challenge became, how do we make that happen, right? And so
that's what I was about to say. I was like, you just made it sound easy, but you were selling chocolate.
Oh,
you
man.
were calling everybody.
We had we had a chocolate, we had Gatorades, we had you name it, we were selling. We had like a little debate store because we had to fundraise a lot, And
when we didn't fundraise, you came out of pocket a lot.
That's, you do what you got to do. And I know that my coach probably did the same thing for me, and she's probably still doing the same for kids right now. That's what teachers do, with teachers everywhere. Unfortunately, they shouldn't have to, but they do, And we spent those Friday nights at the MDLs at Regis, and y'all learned how to debate there, because when you're debating kids who are the best, you're going to get your butt kicked at first, but then you're going to learn, right? If you don't give up, and y'all didn't give up, and that's how you became great. And then, going to States, going to Harvard, going to Yale, there's nothing to be scared of. If you could take debaters from Regis or debaters from Stuy, it's never going to get harder than that. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I know. And I know there were times where you felt like things was unfair for us sometimes. Or, walking in a all-black team from Harlem. And a lot of people, it felt like, I never felt intimidated. I don't know why. I felt like everybody was always intimidated of me. And there was some times where we would have, topics we would discuss, and people would say, this is unfair. Well, how are we going to talk about drug abuse? His parent does drugs.
Yeah.
I'm rich. I never experienced that. I can't compete against him.
Yeah.
How are we going to talk about the juvenile system? And, he's been a part of that. He got so many friends who's a part of that. He can call somebody there right now. He got more information than me. And then you would say, what would you say?
I don't know, Jonathan. What would I say?
You would say stuff like, well, you're rich. You can go to the Urban League. You have this plethora of education that allow you access to certain things, that allow you access to certain articles. You grew up in these spaces. Your dad is a lawyer. John's been doing this for a couple of months. And when John goes home, his whole life is upside down. Can he focus as much as you? Can he study? He has to worry about what he's going to eat tonight. And it was always this back and forth that we would feel sometimes, and I wouldn't say I was intimidated, but sometimes it did make me feel a little sad. It made me feel like I don't belong here.
And that's, again, thinking about Stuyvesant as the paradigm, I felt that at Stuy myself. And then I felt that at Yale. And I can never understand what it's like to be a person of color in this country, not even close, right? But I know a little bit what it feels like to not belong. I know a little bit what it felt like to feel like, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, your best friend's parents are all rich and lawyers and whatever. And I remember when I was in Extemp in high school doing speech and debate, we talked about current events in Extemp. That's the category that I was doing. And I remember all my friends, they all got subscriptions like the New York Times and whatever at their house. They're talking about politics. And I'm like, we get the TV Guide at my house. What are you talking? We don't,
We're watching Love and Hip Hop tonight.
We're just, it's not my parents were awesome. And they 100% valued my education and did whatever they could to help me. But it was just different, and I knew a little bit what it felt like to feel like you're not good enough, and I wasn't going to have you guys feel that.
Yeah.
I knew that the most important thing that kids learn in speech and debate is that their voice matters, no matter who they are or where they come from. That's the most important thing. And if kids learn, I don't care if you never won a round in your life. That didn't matter to me so much as you walking out of those spaces feeling like I belonged there and what I said mattered.
Now we're going to skip a little bit. We're going to skip into a sad day. 10th grade.
Yeah.
I think there's only been one time in my life where I said I hated you.
Yeah. That was a difficult time.
When you told us you were leaving.
Yeah.
And the reason why you're leaving, we're not going to talk about that. But back then I didn't care. But now that I look at it, it was a damn good reason.
Yeah.
You deserve better. And I'm happy you did leave. But I was depressed. I was really hurt. I was like, how? You know what we're going through. You know this is the only outlet I have. And you took that. I know it bothered you.
Oh my God.
I know it
broke my
bothered
heart.
you. And I think we put it on you. And we tried to stay together. Jazz Lee tried to do a lot to keep us together. But
I mean, she called the year after I left, that October, y'all were trying to go to your first tournament at Bronx Science.
Yeah.
And she called me, and she, on the way there, she's like, Dico, nobody even asked us where we were going. We left the building at noon today. No one even bothered to ask. No one checked. And we got halfway to the school, and I think you all just stopped and turned around. Like, you couldn't even go. Yeah. And I mean, that was really, really hard for me. I felt so bad about that.
Yeah, but let's talk about when you did leave. You ended up at?
Yeah, so I went to a school called Achievement First, Brooklyn High School. It was the third year the school had existed, and I was working with the first graduating class. They were juniors at the time. And it was a charter school, very different from FDA, okay? At FDA, teachers had to bring their own copy paper. That is not a lie. At AF, there was like closets and closets of supplies, and I was like, am I in teacher heaven? Like, what is this magical place? And I was like, I have all the resources I need. Are you every room had like a smart board. I was like, what is this place? And when I got there, it was a really similar thing to what happened at FDA. I was like, well, I know I'm here technically teaching English and teaching Latin, but I'm going to start a debate team, right? Like, I don't know how to do this without starting. I can't kick this debate habit. So, I talked to the principal, and same deal. The first year, we're getting our bearings. It's very small. There's a little club and whatever. By year 2, I found my captains there too. And once you find your captains, then you're good. And at that school, there was Serena, there was John, there was Avril, Raisa, Iana. Same, different school, same situation. You find the brilliant, smart kids who are into this, and then the magic happens. And then we go, I mean, I can't even believe what happened at AF. I was there for 8 years, okay? There was no debate program when I got there. There were barely any clubs when I got there. It was like me and my friend Ari started a dance team, and Coach Frank started like a basketball team. That was it. There were no clubs before that at AF, okay? We're just a little debate club. We're meeting a couple times a week, whatever. By the time I leave there, 8 years later, okay, I had kids at AF win UPenn. I had kids win Harvard. I had kids win the state championship. I had kids qualifying for national championships. One kid came in 11th place in the country at the national championship, and she took 3rd place at the Tournament of Champions, which you have to win national championships to even get invited to that tournament, right? Our team had 60 kids on it. We had like 25 kids going to the state championship. At FDA, I was thrilled when we had like 3 kids going. It was a big deal to get 3 kids at the state championship. At AF, we had almost 30 kids qualifying for states. And not just qualifying, but they're breaking to quarters, they're breaking to semis, they're breaking to finals. Sasha ends up winning her senior year. I mean, I still can't believe the magic that happened at AF with the speech and debate team.
I remember watching you guys on the news.
Oh, yeah. We're on Fox 5. We're in the Daily News. We're in Time Magazine. It was unbelievable.
I think I was in college. I was like, and I called you. I'm like, Dico. You like, John, if it wasn't for what y'all did and how we started this, look what I've done. Look, I've turned what we did that. And I was like, oh, my God, these kids are going crazy. And I remember I brought cameras and I started a scholarship at AF.
That's
for
right.
The debate team. It was I just couldn't believe it. And to know that you still had that passion and still helping kids. And even though AF had those resources, they were still helping kids in the inner youth. Kids that came from similar stories, similar backgrounds. So even though it was a charter school and they had more resources, it was still tough kids you had to deal with. Kids that were very similar.
No such thing as tough kids, Jonathan. Kids going through tough things.
You're right. Kids going through tough things and having to deal with circumstances that they shouldn't have to deal with.
Yeah.
And it was just an amazing thing to see. And that even though you moved on, you stuck to your guns, you stuck to your message.
I can't kick this habit, man. Speech and debate. I mean, how am I supposed to leave? The Brooklyn Debate League, or the BDL, exists because all kids deserve the chance to have their voices heard and to learn that what they have to say matters. Too often in speech and debate leagues across the country, it's only rich kids or rich programs or rich schools that can afford the hefty costs and tuition fees and registration fees for coaching and for tournaments and for summer camps. And it ends up at these tournaments, then it's the rich kids and the kids that have all the resources and the access that do the best. And the Brooklyn Debate League, we don't think that's right. So instead, we're offering free programming. Free. 100% free programming to any kid in grades 5 through 12 that wants to zoom in and learn from us. We have weekly programming where we teach kids, we coach them, whether they're state champions or they're brand new 10-year-olds, it doesn't matter. Our coaches are there to support them, meet them where they are, and to help them become skilled at speech and debate. And then on top of that, we offer competitions. We offer competitions a couple times a month on Monday nights and during Sunday afternoons where anybody can zoom in and compete. And it doesn't matter whether you can pay registration fees. Maybe you can't bring a judge. Maybe you can't make it in other tournaments. You can come to us and we'll make space for you and for your school and for your program, and you can compete with us. The Brooklyn Debate League will never, ever turn anybody away because of inability to pay. We believe that speech and debate should be a right, not just a privilege, and that every single kid who wants to learn how to use their voice should be given the opportunity to do so. Because when all kids learn that they can speak up, that's how they can change the world.
So, Dico, even though you accomplished great things at Achievement First, I want to backtrack a little bit. I want to backtrack until the phone call.
Oh, yeah, the phone call.
Probably the end of junior year.
Yeah.
And so before the phone call, so once you left, my third oldest brother, Justin, decided to take custody of me. I was going back down a narrow path. I think I probably had a 4.0. And when you left, I went to like a 3.6. Everybody started to see this spiral because at this point now I don't have nothing to do after school. So I'm back in Webster. I'm rekindling. I get a girlfriend. All of these things that I wasn't doing and people I wasn't around, now they were part of my life again. All my old friends from middle school, we all rekindle. I'm hanging out with them every day now. And now I think I'm an adult. I'm having a girlfriend. I'm having sex. I'm doing it all. And eventually, Justin goes and says, nah, come to Virginia. So I moved to Virginia. My brother take custody of me. My oldest brother moves in, and I'm going to school in Virginia. I'm miserable. And every now and then I'll go back to New York. I miss our parents. And then I'll just meet Nicolette and blah, blah, blah. And one day Nicolette calls me while I'm in Virginia and says, I'm pregnant. That whole happens and I'm back in New York. Now I think towards end of junior year, I'm about to go back towards FDA. I do MS Square and I'm dreading it. I'm dreading telling you and Josh. You were the only two people that I was so afraid to tell. And as soon as it happened, I'm like, Ma, she's pregnant. It is what it is. But for days, I'm like, Josh and Dico, they're going to be so disappointed. And I remember you two were the only two people that uplifted me. And I remember you feeling, I could hear it in your voice. You just felt like, you felt so guilty. And I'm like, Dico, it's over. I'm not going to college. All the time you put into me, I wasted it. I'm having a kid. And you were silent for a while. And like always, you come up with the most perfect response. And you say, I'm going to help you. Don't worry. We have this. But then you also told me why you left FDA. And I felt at that moment you felt guilty. You felt like, what if I didn't leave? Would he be in a situation where he had went back out into the streets? Would he have started to get himself back into things that he shouldn't have been a part of if I stayed? And the same thing with Josh. It was like, okay, what colleges are you applying to? Mm-hmm. Nah, I'm about to have a kid. Yeah, what colleges are you applying to? I'll be okay. I'll send you some money. We'll take care of my niece. I'm like, nah, I don't think. What colleges are you applying to, John? And same thing with you. It's like, what the baby needs, just call me. You got to go to school, right? And that I already made up in my mind. I'm not going. It's over. So I'm working at Family Dollar. I'm in Marcy Projects working at Family Dollar. I moved to Brownsville because that's where Nicolette is at. So I'm no longer in the Bronx, but now I'm in Brownsville. Ooh, that got better. So it's like, I'm just spiraling out of control. I probably missed 5 months my senior year. Nobody says nothing to me because I was Jonathan, the great debater, the kid that was supposed to be something. So everybody's just giving me an A, like he's going through something, whatever. Let him graduate high school. He probably gonna go to college. I remember telling Mr. Murphy, and Mr. Murphy. I've never seen him stump. He was just like, okay. It was just like, it's over. So I wanted to know, what was your thoughts when I told you, and how did you feel about it? If you remember, it was a long time ago.
No, I mean, I remember. I did feel guilty, but it wasn't over. Like this happened to you, and you were like, "That's it, it's over." And mine, I'm like, "Okay, well, this is a challenge. This is unexpected. This is an obstacle. This is not like, what do you mean over? There's no over. Like it's not over, right?" And so I just went right to like problem solving mode. I was like, "Okay, so what has to happen? What do you need? How, like, what do you need? You know, you're probably gonna need diapers. Here, I'll buy you some diapers. Like, what, what do you need? You know, like there's no way that could be over for you. You were too smart. You were too great. You worked too hard. Like you couldn't, there's no way that you could just throw it all away, you know? And, I was worried because we didn't know what was going to happen, you know? Like there was no Stony Brook yet. There was no scholarship yet. We didn't know what was going to happen, you know? But I wasn't giving up.
Yeah, it was a tough time, but what did save me during the college application was the fact that I could go into these meetings and say I competed at Harvard and did very good there. You know, I went to MS Square, Phillips Academy, Andover, number 2 boarding school in the country for 3 summers, and did what I was supposed to do. So all of the things that you did help me accomplish ended up being worth my while when I did apply through the Common App. And I always tell this story. I remember freshman year. Well, remember the EOP summer, and I kept calling you about it, and I was so stressed. They were like, "Yeah, you go to boot camp for 4 or 6 weeks," and I forgot 4 or 6 weeks. No phone, no this, and I'm like, "Man, I got a new baby." And you're like, "Jonathan, you call Emily once a day. What is Emily gonna remember?" And I was so guilty. I was like, "How I'm gonna leave this little girl?" And regardless of what choices my father made, he was there every day. Right? I need to be there. And you're like, I think it had to be you. You said one of the most powerful things to me. And it was like, Emily won't remember from 0 to 4.
Right.
But what Emily will remember is that you're still working at Family Dollar when she's 11.
That's right.
When she's 12. When she's 13. When she has to take out all these loans.
Right.
You put your head down. You work. You have a purpose. And when you come back, Emily will have a life that she never dreamed about. And when I got onto that campus, that's all I would think about. When I was like, I can't do this. I can't do medicine. I'm gonna have a baby. I can't do this. I can't. Oh, something's going on with the family. This is happening. I don't have my support system is not that strong. I don't have this. And you gave me a debit card. And you said, you know, I know you was a teacher. You know, you wasn't rich. You didn't come from a rich background, but you said, don't worry about me. As long as you can do what you need to do, just buy her whatever she needs on this card. And I will always call you like, Dico, I need to buy a couple. Like, why are you calling me? Use the card. And I was like, and I remember one time, I think I stopped using the card for a while. And I was just depressed. I just felt like a bum. I'm just like, I'm using Dico. You know, don't want to use this card. And I went to the mall. It was me and Nicolette had a big falling out. She moved out. So now I have this whole apartment on college that I can't afford. And it's empty. It's just me. And I would get Emily on the weekends, and Emily would spend my whole little $150 check in the Disney store. And I felt guilty. I was like, listen, this is the only time I have the girl. Just let Emily buy whatever she wants. And I go and I say, I stole some Pampers in the mall. And I'm like, I didn't have it. And I'm just depressed. I went to my counselor, Pam, and I'm like, I'm going to drop out. I just can't do this no more. There's no way only way I could take care of her is by breaking the law, and I'm going to get caught and I'm going to embarrass myself. So I'd rather just go back home and do this. And I went, I cried, I opened my mailbox, and it was a wolf. It was a car with a wolf. And I'm like, okay. I opened it, and it said, Dico, you haven't used the car in a while, thinking about you. And it was a $500 check. And I was just bursted out crying in the middle of shaping apartments. I'm just like, everybody's like, who that big dude crying, like holding his baby? And I'm just like, I can't stop, you know. And it was crazy. It was just, things just kept happening, and things that you were doing in my life to keep me motivated and keep me going, even when I didn't pick up the phone. Even then, it was like you knew something was happening. It was like a parent. So when I was like, Dico's my dad, people would be like, that white person is not your dad. And I'm like, Dico's my dad. Dico is here for me in every step of the way, even when Dico don't realize the impact. I don't even know if I ever told you that story. I know you probably remember sending the check. You probably don't even remember. Like I just did it one day. But it was just crazy. So just thank you for that. And not just me. I'm pretty sure I can have 40 kids that you impacted and changed their lives. And you have still been doing that. And I want to get into my next topic with the BDL.
Let me tell you, though, that what else could I have done? People helped me in my life, you know? Like, look at my parents, my grandma, my friends. There were so many people. Like, my debate coach, I can't tell you the number of times my parents couldn't afford to send us to whatever tournaments. That was never an issue. Like, people help. The only reason I got what I got in my life is because I had people that helped me. And what are you supposed to do? Not pass that forward? Like, you got to pay that forward. Like, that wasn't even a question, you know? And for someone like you, Jonathan, like, how could I not? It was an investment, right? Like, the world needed you. Not just Emily needed you to go to college. Like, the world needed you to be the best that you could be, right? And not just you, all of the students, right? That's people need the chance to become who they are meant to be. And all these obstacles that are in your way, that's not your fault. I mean, even the fact that Nicolette got pregnant, this, you know, look at what was happening, right? Like, look at what was happening. It's not your fault. It's the circumstances around you. Like, this is the world, the country, the city that we live in. So those of us that can do something about it and help just a little bit, of course we have to. It's not even a question. And I was right, by the way, because you were worth investing in, because look what happened. Look what happened.
Yeah, appreciate you. But you're not, again, like I said, you didn't just invest in me, invest in hundreds of students from all different races, all different genders. No matter who it is, you have an open hand. And you have been doing that sometimes at the expense of your own self, because it's not easy. And I know it may look easy. It may sound easy on the podcast, but it takes a lot of work. And sometimes it takes a lot of sacrifice. So I want to talk about the BDL. And you could say what that BDL stands for and what you have been doing to continue your debate legacy.
Yeah. So when I was at AF, in my second or my third year there, these two sisters, Adiela and Esther Reyes, they qualified for nationals. They were my first ever kids to qualify for the national championship. And it's a big deal. Like, you know, you gotta be like the top 6 in your district, your league to qualify. And they were. And it was in Sacramento that year. So we fly out to California. I mean, it's a big deal. And we show up at nationals, and I'm walking Adiela to her first round. And, you know, it's a oratory, mostly juniors and seniors doing it, and it's nationals. And so there's a mom there walking her daughter to their first round. And I asked what I thought was a reasonable question, which is, what college is your daughter going to? Because it's mostly seniors, okay? It's nationals, right? And the mom goes, oh no, she's a freshman. And I was like, what? I mean, she's a freshman. What's she doing here at nationals? How'd she get here? Like, is this like Prodigy? Like, what is this kid doing at nationals as a freshman? And she goes, oh, she did an academy in middle school. And I'm like, she did like, what are you talking about? And I go home and I look this up, and unbeknownst to me, I find out that there are around the country speech and debate academies where children as young as 6th grade are allowed to compete and get a head start in speech and debate for the hefty price of like $6,000 to $10,000, right? And I was like, what is this nonsense, right? There's already such a gap in terms of opportunity, and now you got rich kids starting earlier, so there'll be more of a gap when they get to high school. This is like, no, we're not doing this. So I come back that year from nationals, and I talk to the coaches at some local schools, namely Brendan Gorman at Xaverian, Tracy Lynn Thomas at Berkeley Carroll, and Jana White at Poly Prep. And I was like, guys, we got to do something. Like, we got to do something. Let's build something. Like, let's build a pathway for middle school kids where they don't have to pay thousands of dollars to start getting a head start, right? And so we do. And it starts out as like this, it's after school on Fridays. It's, a couple times a year. I think we had like 9 a year or something. Okay. And it was great. We had all these middle school kids come in, and a lot of them had never done speech and debate before. I mean, none of them had ever done speech and debate before. A lot of them didn't even have like teams at their schools, but they were interested, so they'd come and whatever. And we'd have our high school kids stay, and they'd run the tournament. It was great. So like my high school kids and the kids, from Xaverian, from Berkeley Carroll, they'd come and they'd judge, and they'd be running the tournament. And it was like this way to give back and to help little kids get, build up the next generation of speech and debate kids, right? Okay. Well, then COVID hit. And then everything changed, right? There's no more tournaments. There's no more school. Everything is crazy now, right? So it's spring of 2020. By the way, just so you know, right, I'm doing this thing to help out the world. Jonathan's literally saving lives at this moment, okay? Like fighting COVID on the front lines as a respiratory therapist. So before you talk about how great this is, let's just talk about, like, you're literally like a superhero right now, okay? But, it's spring of 2020. The kids haven't had speech and debate. States was canceled. Nationals was canceled. I was like, let's do something for these kids. They miss it. So I start hosting some online tournaments. And we're just doing it for funsies, and kids are really into it. And then I'm talking again with Gorman and TLT and the other coaches that helped me start the Brooklyn Debate League tournaments at AF. And I was like, guys, we got an opportunity here. Like, let's do something. Like, the kids don't have speech and debate elsewhere. Everything is terrible for them. They're so bored. They miss everything. They miss school. They miss their friends. They miss the speech and debate. Let's do it. So we started launching a Brooklyn Debate League 2.0, where everything was on Zoom, which meant, first of all, now we have kids zooming in from around the country. It's not just Brooklyn anymore, right? And we can have younger kids come, even if their parents can't take them, right? Because even if you're hosting an in-person thing, if you're a 5th grader or a 6th grader, you're going to need someone to take you there if you can't take the bus by yourself or whatever. And of course, if your parents are working or, your parents aren't able to do that, then there's obstacles. But now, if you got a phone that's got Wi-Fi, you can zoom in, right? So suddenly we're getting a lot more kids that are able to join us from all over the place. And we start leaning on our alumni, and we start building up coaches. So now we were offering coaching on top of competitions. And where we landed was offering weekly programming, and it's all free, and it's on Zoom, and it's run mostly by high school and college alumni of speech and debate that are coaching, that are lesson planning. They don't know it yet, but what I really hope happens is like they become the next generation of coaches, right? And we've tried really hard to make sure that it's inclusive. So like, there's a lot of people of color. There's a lot of women. There are queer people, like people that are underrepresented in coaches in speech and debate. And they're all kicking butt, right? And these kids are better coaches than half the adults I know. And then they're training middle school kids and some high school kids, many of whom don't have teams at their schools. There's no way they could do speech and debate otherwise. And almost all of whom are doing this for free, right? Like we're like a sliding scale donations only kind of thing. And we are welcoming generous donations because heaven knows, like, we need the money to pay stipends for our coaches because they're college kids. And like, I want to make sure we're giving them something. But we're never going to turn kids away. We're never, ever going to turn kids or schools away because they can't pay. Like, we're all sick of the speech and debate world where registration costs are anything from like $10 a kid to like $300 a kid, depending on the tournament, right? When we took you to Harvard charges hundreds of dollars per kid. And that's not counting the bus ride there or the hotel or the food for the 4 days. That's just to compete in the tournament. And I think that's criminal, right? And I get it. These college teams, this is how they fund their own teams. And I understand that. But you got hundreds of kids coming to your tournament. You can't give a break to the kids that can't afford it, right? Like, it's just crazy to me. So at our league, we don't do that. In our league, you pay what you want if you can, when you can. And if you can't, that's okay too. We're still going to train you. We're still going to offer competitions. And it's a regular thing. It's every Monday night. And everybody's welcome to come.
I've been seeing it. It's awesome. The BDL is awesome. What you're doing there is amazing. And I remember judging there, and I'm like, 120 people. It was like on a Friday night. It's like all these little kids is excited to debate. I'm like, and those are your future lawyers. your future judges, your future content creators, learning how to communicate, learning how to take over a room. That's a skill you need in any profession. My daughters and my son will be debating under Dico. So, whew, we talked about a lot, Dico.
Sure did.
Now, I would love to say we're done, but we're not. Dico, you stopped teaching. Well, never stopped teaching, but you stepped away.
Stopping is a strong word.
Yeah, you stepped away for a little bit for a different journey. You know where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah. So, would you like me to tell the story?
Yes.
So, in between all of this coaching, speech, and debate and teaching, since 2007, a couple big life changes happen, and they're great. I get married, I fall in love, I get married in 2014. I become Jewish. I convert to Judaism soon after that. My partner's Jewish, but that's not why. They're not the reason why I converted. It just so happened. Yeah. And I start getting an itch to maybe try studying Judaism in a more serious way. The thing you got to remember with speech and debate, of course, is that if you're a speech and debate coach, you have no Saturdays. They are not yours. You are at tournaments every Saturday with children. So I got to go to services during the summer and twice a year, right? I could never go to services because I was always with kids. But when I went, I was like, this is fulfilling. This is nourishing. This is good for my soul. This is good. I want more of this. And after 12 years in the classroom, right before the pandemic, which was, kind of funny, almost right before the pandemic, kind of funny timing, I was like, you know what? It's time to try something else. Because if I don't try it now, I'm always going to wonder what would have happened if I tried it. So I went and I started teaching at my synagogue. I'm still teaching, but just, at a synagogue. So teaching Jewish stuff and Bible stuff and all Torah and Hebrew and all that good stuff. The second year there, I was the assistant director of the school. And I was like, I'm going to apply to rabbinical school. It's kind of one of those now or never things, It's like, I don't know. I'm not going to know what I'm missing until I try it. So let me try it. Let me see how this goes. And I ended up getting accepted to a couple places. And I chose the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College, which is outside of Philadelphia. And although I've been going there for a semester, I have not actually had a single class on campus because of COVID. So it's all been online. But I've really enjoyed it. And I've learned a lot about Hebrew and Torah and all that good stuff, and history. And I still don't know how to kick this debate habit, right? So on top of doing that, I'm running the Brooklyn Debate League, and we're still doing weekly programming. And this semester, I was really excited that I could start coaching at Stuyvesant High School, where, of course, it all started for me. So I've been coaching their debaters, their speechies, and it's great. It's still the best part of my week, working with kids, whether it's at the BDL or at Sty. I don't think I'm ever going to not be a speech and debate coach. I don't think I know how to not be one.
When you find your passion, you got to stick to it.
That's how it goes.
I have a question. And every time people in my immediate circle, they say, how's Dico doing? Everybody knows our relationship and how I feel about you. Dico's in medical school. I said, huh? How? What do you mean how? Dico's studying to be a rabbi. Isn't Dico trans? Are they allowed? I don't know the answer to that. But I said, I think so. Dico's in school. So I don't know if it's a stereotype. I don't know why that's always the first thing asked to me. Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. So this is one of those, just teaching by existing. That's great. I'm happy to teach by existing.
Yeah.
So Judaism, like most things, means a lot, right? There's
Yes.
a big, wide spectrum. There are parts of that spectrum, the more conservative parts, that never mind wouldn't allow me to be in rabbinical school, that wouldn't even recognize me as Jewish, okay? There are parts of that spectrum. Think about it as far left as you can go on that spectrum, and then go a little bit further, and that's the kind of Judaism that I'm in, right? And the school that I picked, one of the reasons I picked it is because it's the only school I visited where there were queer people and people of color, both students and staff on campus. And I was like, hello, great. This is a place where everybody can be, and it's just super inclusive. And it's funny, in my cohort right now, there's like 11 of us. I think like 9 of us are queer and like half of us are trans or non-binary. Like it is very normal in my little world of Judaism for folks to be in rabbinical school and to also be trans. And I think that's important for everybody to know, I mean,
I think it's super important.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a stereotype. I'm ignorant to Judaism. I don't know enough about it to talk, but everybody always asking me, why? How? And I'm like, what do you mean how?
Like the moral of the story is like, I mean, it's like anything else, but like queer people and trans people can be anything, right?
Exactly.
And also, just like fun fact, right, with me, because like a lot of people look at me and they see like 13-year-old boy, which is hilarious. I'm often at debate tournaments. I'm asked what category I'm in. Like that still happens. It's pretty funny. But for a lot of trans people, they're passing, right? So like you would never know they were trans, right? I have a friend who's a principal or an assistant principal in New York, and he was saying he was talking about trans stuff to his colleagues, and his colleagues were like, "Yeah, I don't know any trans people," and he's like, "You do," and they're like, "No, I really don't." He's like, "You really do," right? And they had no idea he was trans, right? Because like trans people and queer people, we're just people living our lives, doing our things, becoming rabbis, becoming teachers, being assistant principals, all the stuff everybody else does.
I think society has a way of just putting people in boxes.
It sure does.
And I think the more we have these conversations, the more we talk about and educate people about these things, it's going to make our society in a better place.
100%.
So you heard it here now. So if you ask me this question, I'm going to know that you didn't listen to this episode, and I'm going to ignore you and block you because you didn't support me. So Dico could do whatever Dico wants to do. And I'm pretty sure Dico is probably going to be the best rabbi the world has ever seen, because when you put your mind to something, you are amazing. This has been amazing, Dico. I thank you so much for the impact you have had on my life. I thank you for the impact you have had on hundreds of people's lives. Keep doing what you're doing. And I have no choice but to keep doing what I do because of your investment and because of how much you dedicated your time into me. And I know your investment in me was so that I can help hundreds of other people.
That's how it goes.
I love you. I appreciate you. And you are a professional winner.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you for tuning in. This has been a fabulous episode. God bless and have a great day.
Professional winner. Professional winner. Professional winner. Professional winner.